Good morning, fellow creatives. We are back for another writing session. And this time, we are having with us Renato Tranquilino. So, sino ba si Renato Tranquilino? So, let me tell you something about him. So, si Renato Tranquilino is actually a Filipino-Australian IT professional who has an interest in sci-fi, fantasy films, and writing stories. And truth be told, ito yung copy nung book niya and I'm very lucky to be one of the owners of this original cover nitong sci-fi book niya. He's writing the next parts or the next series nitong book na to, and on the side, he loves to play League of Legends. So guys, without further ado, let's all welcome Renato Tranquilino to share with us his success on sci-fi fantasy writing and of course representing the Philippines internationally for the Philippine science fiction. So let's welcome Ren. Good morning, everyone. And as I mentioned earlier, we are very lucky to have with us here Renato Tranquilino. So Renato is actually Filipino-Australian. Ayan, say hello to our viewers, Renato.
Hello, kamusta kayo? Good morning.
Morning. Okay, Renato, very interested kami about your author life. But
Ah,
first, I want to
okay.
know, is it really your dream to become a writer?
No, never na plinano ko in my wildest dream na maging writer. Um, nung, so lumaki ako sa Australia, pero nung nagpunta ako sa New York, napasabi ako sa mga friends na film directors and actors. So, natuto ako mag-shoot ng film. So what I really wanted to do is write a script and shoot my own sci-fi films or urban fantasy films. Ang problema lang nga is like nung eventually napunta ako dito, I realized I managed to make that dream come true of shooting my own film. And then so I did a short film. Nagdala pa ako ng mga actor from America and then my cinematographers from France, a good friend of mine. So when we shot it here, pero masyadong mahal like to do a sci-fi. Bali yung budget ko na originally na $10,000 would have been blown up to $15,000 if I had to do a sci-fi film. Yung $5,000 nun is just for CGI.
Oh,
So I gave that up and then switched to writing muna
mhm.
to try and generate the interest there, and then I hope na in the future I won't get the funds to actually shoot a trailer for whatever sci-fi or urban fantasy idea I have. Ganon.
Yeah, actually,
So
that's very interesting, no? So, is it really that sci-fi is your favorite genre, whether it's in movies or in books and in the things that you write about?
that's correct. Yeah, it's a form of escapism for me. It's good and bad kasi it just I'm a little bit narrow-minded about like movies. So of course there are a few movies that I also like na hindi sci-fi. Halimbawa, The Green Mile, yung mga
Yeah.
special dramas na ganun na I would never go out of my way to watch those, pero I just happen to accidentally watch them, and so they it's quite good. Pero like if I had to choose between an Oscar award winning drama versus a B rated sci-fi film, I would probably go for the B rated sci-fi film more than the Oscar rated drama.
Oh,
So yeah,
okay. So your
yeah,
heart
it
is
sounds
really in
terrible.
sci-fi. What specifically do you like about sci-fi, and who are your inspiration?
Okay, so just to give the audience some context, 52 years old na ako. And so I grew up dito sa Pinas, still age 12. So back in the 70s, when the Philippines is very sophisticated in terms of taste, hindi katulad ngayon, the Philippines had a lot of sci-fi films and series. Nandun na, of course, yung Star Trek and Star Wars, ano? Pero meron din tayo nung dati na Sapphire and Steel, Doctor Who also I used to watch briefly. UFO, the series called UFO, Time Tunnel. So all these, like, you probably all millennials are going, what the hell is Googling? And okay, so those were like the top shows back in the 70s that really inspired, like, I'm a batang kalye. So we would talk about these things sa kalye, no? So mag-uusapan kami ba yung nangyari sa episode, ganito ganyan.
Mhm.
So yung 70s na yun, don't forget Voltes 5 singers,
Right.
like, I know Voltes 5 is having a revival. But those were, yung days na talagang escapism talaga. Because I was also at the height of the Marcos regime,
Mhm.
ganon. So we, we kind of tried to get away from all the bad stuff back then, and so, space was like the
Mhm.
final frontier, and all this, so that it really is just an escapism. And another thing too was, like, I was a very sick kid when I was growing up, kaya in and out ako sa hospital with asthma. And so comics, like DC Comics, Marvel Comics, I mean, reading was probably the safest thing I could do when I'm recovering from asthma. Uh,
Mhm.
so that sort of thing. So it's like there's a lot, it's quite a bit of that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's how I kind of fell into, like, sci-fi.
Do you think that you'll ever write in another genre?
Well, I was surprisingly, I did write urban fantasy, which
Mm.
I didn't think I was going to be good at. But nag-start off siya as a script. I was going to actually create a trailer for a movie. So I wrote an urban fantasy movie. If ever that film gets made, it's probably going to be a budget of siguro mga minimum na yung $75 million. Ano?
Oh.
Um, pero it kind of spans, like, the how Philippine history ties in with global history. Tapos it starts off sa World War II, like titled The
Mhm.
Nazis, and basically talks about how the blood of Christ ended up in the Philippines. Paano napunta
Oh, okay.
yung angkan ni Jesus sa Pilipinas, gano'n.
Philippines.
Tas kung bakit nagkagulo dito, and then it runs through till the time of President Duterte 2017,
Mhm.
which happens, the second, parang sinasabi yung second Battle of Manila, which is like in a, yung bang nasa isang dimension siya na naglaban sila, and whoever wins will basically, if effectively, like, if the bad people win, then it would have been a disaster for Manila and the rest of the world. So, yung para bang Royal Rumble kind of siya, like, good versus
Mm.
evil. Tapos everyone is involved. Like, there was like a UN contingency pa kasali nila ng mga bida, like, to fight off against the bad people. So
Okay.
there's a little bit of, like, the Riots game, which is League of Legends. So merong a bit of that
Okay.
kind of aspect there. So yeah, because I
So
play
you're
League of Legends as well. So
yeah, so you're also a gamer.
and very
A
very
little bit. Okay.
again, for
Okay.
relaxations, I play Jinx. So
Okay.
usually I like taking out towers. Ganun.
So, syempre, between urban fantasy and sci-fi, you prefer, I guess, still sci-fi, no? That's where your heart really is.
Yes, yes. I've always wanted to try and write a sci-fi script,
Okay.
and I've done an action film sa sa New York. As you know that yung script noon, and it was shopped around, like, the Dylan brothers liked it, The Rock liked the
Mm-hmm.
script, because I made The Rock like this macho gay guy, like, he's an absolute queen when he's not in when he's not in assignment mode, but when he is, he's like full on, like a marine, like, uh, badass, carrying big guns, that sort of stuff. So he kind of liked that duality of his character. Approached Mark Wahlberg. So Mark Wahlberg was going to be the star. Um,
Okay.
but at the time, I think sabi niya hindi niya he couldn't he liked the script but he couldn't review it enough because he just bought the rights to Caesar. That was no, it's like God, 2010, 11.
Okay.
So, um, but yeah, that just gives you an idea how long
Mhm.
some of the sometimes how long it takes for a film to come to life.
Yeah.
Uh,
Actually, I don't have any idea about that. So sometimes wala ganon. I thought that once the script is there, then it just gets rolling as soon as the cast is already in. But I have very little knowledge about
oh,
that. Thank you for sharing those information.
yeah,
Uh,
sometimes it could take 10 years or more. So,
oh,
you know,
wow, the budget I can just imagine.
yeah,
Going back to sci-fi again,
hmm,
I think there are lots of sub branches no sci-fi na
correct.
I don't
Yep.
really know the definitions of, like space opera. I don't understand
Hmm.
those. So would you
Okay.
able to share with us ano ba yung different types ng
Well,
sub-accounts at
you know,
sci-fi?
yeah, the most common ones, pagka sinabi nila nga, di ba, dystopian, it's like yung para
Ah,
bang disaster, tapos ito na yung like, mga survivors, ganon. Tapos
okay.
yung space opera naman is like, para siyang Star Wars, it's a space
Mhm.
opera.
Ah,
Pero meron
okay.
pang, pero you can also describe Star Wars as science fantasy kasi yung science niya
Mhm.
is parang magic. Like for instance, lightsaber, di ba? Like
Ah,
light, how can you turn light into a weapon? So, people are trying, pero right now wala pang makatalaga gawa nun,
okay.
as a lightsaber. Um, so para siyang fantasy,
Mm-mm.
and then you have like the actual science fiction, which is like for tech geeks, Star Trek. So everything about Star Trek um, has a sound scientific fundamental.
Okay.
Di ba? Yung mga sliding doors nila, yung mga tricorders, yung cellphone, di
Okay.
ba?
Yeah.
Yung wearable tech, pinipindot nila yung
Okay.
sa dibdib nila, then they can speak. So lahat merong ganon. Um,
Hmm.
transporter, ganon, which is, this is all like in the 60s, mga basehan ng sci-fi, na merong siyang sound fundamentals. Uh, and then I think yeah, those are the main ones.
Uh-huh.
Yung book ko magfo-fall into basically kind of like Star Trek na meron
Okay.
siyang fundamentals na pero hindi naman siya napaka-geeky na level ni Asimov. Ganon.
Hmm.
Um, okay. So, para siyang basically starter, starter pack sa anyone that's interested sa Philippine science fiction. Ito na, like, ito yung progression natin, like, going
Okay.
forward. Yeah.
Thank
And,
you for that. I'm sure madaming natutunan yung mga viewers natin about the different types of sci-fi subgenres.
mhm.
First, I'd like to know what type of a writer are you? Kasi di ba merong iba na talagang napaka-OC, kailangan chapter by chapter they know what's gonna happen. So they're a
Okay.
plotter, or sometimes naman anything goes. It develops, the story just develops and you just need to write it. So you're a pantser, or could you be a combination of both?
Actually, I kind of, um, I have a lot of respect for writers, pero I don't classify myself as a writer. I class myself as a storyteller. Okay, just a pure storyteller who just happens to be able to put these stories on paper. To me, a writer is someone who really invests on their writing and perfecting it. And so when they string words together, it's so good. They take time in terms of massaging the content to make sure that the readers are happy. Much like yourself, like the way you wrote. I mean, it's very nicely done. The way the sentences are put together. So that when the editors come in and check the work, it's like there's little work for them to do. I'm the opposite. I couldn't care less. So I just write, I just tell my story, okay, and then I let my editor scream at me. But my important thing to me is to complete the story, finish it. And then let's talk about where it sucks and how I can improve it and all that. And usually my editors, whoever it is I'm working with, will tell me how to structure the stories. Put this bit here and all that. But the nice thing with my stories is that once you've read it, it's easy for you to tell it, like to explain it to people what happened to the story. Your characters are very easy to describe. They can even embellish it. They can make their story their own. Tapos ikwento nila sa iba. And so that's how I would like my stories to be told. Now, no matter how long, whether it's a 200-page book or 100 plus page book that I wrote, or it's a 500-page book. Um, I want my readers to be able to easily tell the story to someone and just say, "Oh yeah, I'll tell you a story. It's like this." Even high school kids na hindi sila masyadong magaling sa English, pwede nilang ikwento yung story. So I don't aim to be an award-winning novelist or something. But what I want to do is for someone to recognize the story well enough to say, wow, I can turn that into a film really easily.
Uh-huh,
You
uh-huh.
know, whether it's in English or it's in Tagalog, it's like, I'd like to be able to turn that story convert it into a big screen really easy. I write in scenes. Ito yung scene 1,
Mhm.
scene 2, scene 3, blah, blah, blah. Pero I don't care so much about like the perfect sentences as long as I can describe to the point na my first book is almost like I'm directing a film in your head kasi when I wrote it, you have to really read it with an Instagram account that I created. Nandun yung mga images
Right,
ng mga
right.
sinasabi ko. So habang nagbabasa ka, pwede mo siyang i-reference. Yan pala yun. That's what I'm talking about. So
Right.
it builds a setup na already in their head. That's the kind of thing I like to do. I mean, because it's so expensive to shoot, I'm kind of directing a film in your head. Much as much the same way sa book ko, the one that I wrote now. Ang kahirapan ng urban fantasy at sci-fi, yung urban fantasy, pwede ka pang mag-reference sa mga historical sites na buhay pa, that exist. Ang sci-fi, wala. So, you have to almost draw it from scratch, pag may dinidescribe ka, lalo na if it's in another planet, how do you describe that planet? Doon nagiging challenging. Pero nga, dahil ako, I'm a storyteller, I'd like to be able to describe to you in pictures my story. Um,
Correct.
so I take the time to illustrate things sa book.
Okay, sige. And that's really good. And naalala ko tuloy kasi this is actually
Ah,
Ren's
yep,
book.
the first
And I
one.
get I'm really lucky kasi I
Mhm.
think this is sort of the first ed or the first
The first
book
edition. The
cover,
first,
etc.
yeah, actually, magiging collector's
Yes.
item na yan. Yeah,
Right.
yep, there you go.
I'm so
Uh,
excited actually because this is the original cover. I believe
yeah,
that this is also your artwork. Is that right?
correct. Yeah, yeah. So
Plus
the
this
way,
one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that took me 2.5 weeks to draw that one. Yeah.
Wow.
Uh,
I was actually looking at the details eh. Parang, oh my God.
yeah.
This is
The
so good. And
yeah
then,
the
look, I actually have his signature dedication on this book. So this is going
yeah,
to
and
be a
I have your
collector's
book,
copy soon.
and
So,
I got yours too.
yeah, and actually, I read, this is actually a collection of sci-fi stories. So initially, I didn't know that when I bought this. And
Uh-huh.
then I was going over this and I saw that, nice. Kasi you don't have to do it in one sitting because in one sitting, you can actually finish one story already. And the way
Yep.
that Ren was narrating it earlier, look, guys, there are
Yeah.
lots of illustrations here on the book. I'm not sure if the current copy also has the illustrations, Ren.
Yes, it does. So
Okay, okay. I
it
think
has that. Yeah.
based on what you said, they're an essential part of the book.
Actually,
Yeah,
half
you can
graphic
go
novel.
between flipping through the pages, through the narrative, and then the
Hmm.
photos so that kung manahirapan kayong try to picture it, there's really a
Mm,
guide here. And I
yeah.
understand it so much better now kasi when you mentioned that sometimes there's the Instagram feed and you look at it
Hmm.
and then you look at the narrative, they go hand in hand for a
Hmm.
better understanding. So when you
Right.
mentioned the way that you're writing it, it makes so much sense now.
Hmm.
Maganda siya, guys. I recommend you getting a copy of this.
Thank
So
you. Thank you.
can you tell us more about the book now? So we're moving to
I'm
discussing
reading about
is
yeah,
this.
yeah. Okay. Um, So, para siyang like so collection of four stories nga siya. So, why four? Bakit ganito? Like usually like nagsulat yung una kong sinulat is like mahabang story siya, 500 pages. But why short one? Ito yung book na ginawa ko talaga for the Philippine masses, para sa masa. Ah, ang criticism sa akin ng editors ko parati is like, bakit napaka-simple ng English mo? Bakit hindi ka gumamit ng mas, complex words or string your sentences more complex and shorter, ganon. Like, ang sabi ko is like, because gusto kong mabasa dahil ng even 18 years old dito na kahit hindi masyado marunong ng English, maintindihan nila yung binabasa nila. Ano. So that's the style of all my books na madali siyang basahin. Tsaka and of course, the images helps. So ang ginawa ko is like, so ang tanong sa akin, ano ba ang Pinoy Sci-fi? Paano maiiba yung sinusulat mo? Kung sinabi mo Philippine science fiction yan, ano ba yan? Ah, so nangyari din yan nung nirepresent ko ang Philippine science fiction sa Frankfurt, dun sa Frankfurt Book Festival this year. Ang sabi ko is like, well, think of it this way. Philippine sci-fi is like, if you take how the Philippines is right now, all the baggages that we have will still be there going forward, even 3,000 years from now. And the other thing too is that we kind of embrace technology tapos ginagawa natin siyang part ng culture natin. So, for example, jeepney, di ba? If you look at the design of the jeepney in the 1940s at saka sa design hanggang ngayon, wala masyadong difference. Okay? The same with the kalesa. Meron pa rin kalesa. And that's part of our culture. So, hindi mawawala yan. The kabayo might change. Might become mechanized more. Pero the kalesa will always be there. Um, so, ganun ang Pinoy, Tapos, andun yung religion and all that. So, talagang pag tinignan mo siya, going forward, iba ang dating ng Pinoy sci-fi. And that's what I'm trying to distinguish. Kasi pag nagsulat ka ng sci-fi, karaniyan, it's all about spaceships, rockets, ganun, like robots, androids. Nawawala, ang hindi magets ng tao is like, pag tinanggal mo yun, ang sci-fi really is about K-drama ng mga tao. So, Pinoy drama rin. Nilagyan lang mga extra bits na, yung sa the future. Pero yung tao, that's gonna stay the same unless ma-wipe out yung species natin completely. Which is not an impossibility naman dahil that's happened before sa
Mhm.
history ng humans. Pero going forward, ganun nga. It's like, it's Pinoy drama na 3,000 years into the future, or in this case, like, in gradation siya, iba't ibang era, na makikita nyo kung paano tayo nakapunta sa space. Why is space so important? I mean, mining, why is that so important? I mean, yun ang mga mining is so crucial to a developing country because that allows you to grow your infrastructure dahil meron kang kinukuha sa ground na binibenta sa ibang bansa na they're paying you handsomely for it. So, ganun na basehan ng ano, yung isa sa mga stories diyan. It's like mauna tayo sa paghakot ng raw materials or something para ibigay sa mundo, sa solar. That's really like, like one of the essence ng development ng libro. It's how we would evolve as a nation, as a spacefaring nation. Feel free to check out my website, author
Yeah,
Renato
oo.
Tranquilino. Yeah.
Actually, I finished the first story and it
uh-huh.
reminded me so much of ano, what was that on Netflix? Black Mirror ba yun? Yung may ghost.
Yes! Oo, maganda yun.
Is that an inspiration? Parang ganun kasi siya eh.
Definitely.
Um,
Um,
kasi when I
love,
read everything here on the back,
yeah.
it seemed like they're not directly related, but they're part of a world. So
Yes.
it resonated like that, and it's really very interesting. So I suggest guys,
Yeah.
if you haven't tried sci-fi, maganda
Mm-hmm.
siya. If
Mm-hmm.
you're a sci-fi lover, you will definitely love it. So get your
Yeah.
copy from Eight Letters.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
yeah, and then Ren, I just want to check with you kasi I believe you're
Mhm.
also writing sequels to this book. Plus, you
Yes.
mentioned that you read at the
That's
500
actually
page. Yeah.
correct. Correct. Yan. That's the kind of like prequel. Bali, prequel yan or parang sampler yan. Kasi ang sinusulat ko ngayon, ito na yung space opera. So, Pinoy space opera ng
Okay.
ano ng much like you wrote a book as you wrote the let me see, breaking scroll, right? So ang
Yes,
breaking
yes.
scroll, di ba, trilogy siya. So ganun
Yes.
din like sa trilogy din ito. So I'm in the process of finishing book one. And yeah, so hopefully like I would be able to complete the trilogy siguro within the next 2 to 3 years. Pero mahaba yun, like hindi na siya mga 100 plus pages, mga siguro aabot ng mga 500 each, mga
Right.
500
Right.
pages each. So,
Of course, I'm excited to see that release, no? And
uh,
we'll definitely
you,
get a copy of that.
definitely, yeah, they'll send you a copy, yeah, for sure.
And kasi mahirap mag-write eh. Although I
Mm-hmm.
think you have a lot of creative juices. But have you ever experienced writer's block? And what are your tips in battling them?
Yung writer's block, sometimes you just have to accept it na when it happens, go and do something else. Yun ang kagandahan ng having a job na if you have other things that you do, like for instance, having a job instead of just being a full-time writer. Pwede mong iwanan muna yung yung writing, just go back to your go back to focusing on your job and uh, especially kung 9 to 5 yung job mo, ganun. Or if you have a young kid, meron ako young kid, so just play with them, blah blah blah, and then it'll come back. There's no point in pushing na bumalik yung juices. It'll just come back on its own. Ang pinakamahirap when you're writing a story is connecting the dots. So, ako, I imagine the book I'm writing as a film. So I know the beginning, I know the ending. Tapos,
Okay.
you start writing it. Ang mag-meet yun sa center. Pero may mga
Mm,
beats doon, paano mo sila i-connect? Kasi, ang sabi sa akin ng editor, pag yung part ng story mo, hindi siya nag-a-advance masyado sa story, cut it out kasi babagal yung story mo. So, paano mo siya papabilisin? Anong mga triggers niya? Every page dapat may trigger para, oh, yan, game na. O yan, sapa ka na. Yan, as an action. Oh, may love story ba dyan? I'm pretty bad at love stories. Like I say, parating don't expect any decent love story sa book ko. Merong mga hints ng romance pero
okay,
nothing
okay.
na
You did
nothing that
well.
will satisfy. So basta action siya. Ang actually mga ina-admire ko na writer si Matthew Riley.
Mhm.
Uh, yung sa Matthew Riley wrote Ice
Mm-hmm.
Station. If you ever find that, if you read that, and you won't be able to put it down for 3 or 4 days. Ano pa ba? And of course, Star Wars, Star Trek, and I also like Terry Brooks. Kasi si Terry Brooks, madaling basahin yung libro niya. Tuloy-tuloy. Yeah, I like Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is a masterpiece. Para siyang Shakespeare of urban fantasy, gano'n.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Can you share something about self-publishing,
okay.
traditional publishing? Kasi right now you're with 8 letters, I think. So is
Yeah,
that
but I wasn't
right?
always with 8 letters, so I was very lucky to be taken by 8 letters for Fate of a Distant Future. Isang book ko wala pang home na publishing house. So I launched that myself. So I have been through the two roads ng self-publishing at saka being like having a publishing company like look after you. So the way I describe it is like this. Yung English channel, ano? Like you can swim it from England to France. Yung English channel. Maliit siya, pero mahaba siya. Pero you have to be fit enough to swim it across. Okay? From Brixton to Calais yata yun. So, it's English channel. Pag self-publishing ka, ikaw mismo lalangon. Well, on your own. Yung strength mo, yung diskarte mo, yung equipment mo, yung kukuha sa'yo, ganon. Sa'yo lahat yun. Don't come out of your own pocket.
Yeah.
Pag
So,
may, pag, pag meron kang indie publisher, okay, parang binigyan ka ng maliit na bangka na rowing boat. So at least meron ka ng tumutulong sa ng kaunti like for marketing and everything, yung pag-set up sa mga pagtawid mo, and meron ka doon mga life raft, ganon. So, pwede ka mag-row. Pero ano pa rin, like effort pa rin.
mm,
Kasi hindi malaki. Pag nakuha ka na ng malaking publisher, para ka nang nasa ferry. Yung naka-chill ka na lang, like nandun na yung book mo, sila na bahala. Sasabihin na lang sa'yo, okay, be here, like to promote your book, okay, you have a guest appear here, blah, blah, blah. So, lahat na yun organize sa'yo. Mas malawak, okay?
mm,
That's with a very big publisher. So, yun ang levels na makikita mo na, like, ang
mm.
difference. Okay, so let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Pagka self-publishing ka, for instance, yung first book ko, 500 pages. To produce one book with all the designs, ganon, costs me, it was going to cost around 400, about 500 pesos each.
Mm-mm.
So kung times 100 yon, minimum order times 100, ano? So 500 times 100, you're looking at like what 50,000 na, no? Okay. So kailangan ready yung 50,000 mo para produce mo yung 500-page book. So I did that. Tapos nag-launch pa ako sa sa isang malaking sa casino for hotel.
Aha.
So that merong ano naman yun like yung X deal. So that was cost me like 10,000 plus, 10, 15,000. Ako rin nag-provide ng wine, ganun, blah, blah, blah.
Aha.
Um, and so, and then to talk to ang target ko talaga noon, mga reporters, career
Ah,
reporters, hindi lang
yeah.
vlogger, walang pumapansin sa akin sa vloggers, because no, like they don't want like an old guy like just talking about sci-fi. You have to be cool. I didn't know how to be cool then. So yun na nga. So pero ang journalist dito mababait. I must say,
Okay.
Philippine journalist for
Uh-huh.
every facet ng whether it be magazines or something, they're always nice to talk to. And if you can get them and they're not busy and to talk to them about your book, I would strongly suggest career journalist ang kausapin ninyo to promote your book.
Oh, okay,
Um,
okay.
Now, iba yun sa mga millennials. There are some millennials that are into like self-help, like dramas, gano'n and all that. What happens is that they they can self-promote pagka yung mga popular genres ngayon, yung mga about the heart and relationships. Ganun. But when it comes to sci-fi, urban fantasy, I go for the creme de la for the top like reporters and like basically newspaper people. So yun ang parati. Like with any release of my books, it's always the reporters I go to. Have lunch with them, have dinner with them, and all that, and they explain your book and all. And they always have great questions for you. Tapos pag lumabas na sa newspaper, ang ganda parati ng dating
Mhm.
for the book. So that's one thing I can highly recommend Philippine journalists like
Okay, okay.
are great to talk to. In whoever they are, some of them can become obnoxious, but it doesn't matter because once they get what you're saying and it
Mhm.
fits it fits their narrative, then they'll do it really well.
That's a very nice
Um,
tip, no? It can
mm.
be pretty expensive when you have to organize an event. But
You don't have to.
kung
You don't. It. Yeah. I mean, if you're in a budget, pwede namang you
Mhm.
can do it in a cafe or something. Pero basta meron kang coverage from the media.
Okay,
Yeah, hindi lang hindi lang I'm not talking like YouTubers or bloggers, ganun. I'm talking real newspaper that covers your make an effort to get
mhm.
yourself in the news. Whatever you need to do, get yourself in the
Okay.
news, like either TV, newspaper, radio. Uh,
Mhm.
I think that's very important.
I'll take note of that. It will also help
Yeah,
me. And then,
yeah, yeah.
thank you for sharing with us what your book is about, all those tips. Pero madami kasi
Mm-hmm.
na viewers natin are just into writing. Nasa starting point pa
Mm-hmm.
lang sila.
Okay.
So what tip can you give for these new writers na sometimes they encounter yung nga, writer's block and sometimes grasping for the
Mm-hmm.
right words in the book? All those challenges, what are your, perhaps you can share top three tips with them?
Well, I guess the first thing that I was taught by my father, not so much about writing, is like you always finish what you start. So when you want to write a story, don't just talk about it, complete it. Kahit na pangit, either in Tagalog or English or Hindi or German or French, whatever language you're comfortable in writing it, write it and finish it. That's number one. So number two, understand when you go into writing that it's a business. So you're in a business of selling your story. Hindi lang siya, oh, I wrote a book, pat on the back. No, no, that's you need to go into it as understand that you have to sell your story so to make money. Uh, and that's a lifelong process. That could be a lifelong process until mahanap ka ng publisher tapos nagawa na yung ano mo, yung book mo na promote na yung book mo tapos you're making millions. Magiging ala J.K. Rowling ka, then tuloy-tuloy yan. Like until you get to that point. And then finally, like I think just understand that just because you wrote a great story, not everybody's going to think it's great. So you need a team to make it work for the public to convince people to buy it. So kailangan mo ng editors, kailangan mo ng beta readers mo, kailangan mo ng illustrators, ganun. So it's hindi lang ikaw, hindi it's not a one man, it's not always just a one man process. You need to rely on others to make it work, yung book work because yeah, it's a business, so you need people for your business. So apart from understanding you're in it to sell, you're also gonna need a team. So with those three things, I think um, you know you're on your way. That's probably 90% of whatever you need to sell your book. So yeah,
Those are actually very insightful, especially yung it's not just a pat on the back. You really
yeah,
have
it's
to
like
do it.
I
I
used to.
totally agree with what you shared. Minsan mahirap, no? Kasi sometimes it's very difficult for ourselves to market our work
Very
directly
much
to
so.
people. But if you want to really embark on this writing journey. Talagang that's part of it,
Eight letters have got a lot of things, classes about marketing, about how would you promote yourself, like
right?
everything to do with writing. They have it covered. So that's one thing that's great with eight letters. Pwede ka nilang, apart
Yeah.
from being your publisher, they have lots of classes that you can choose from to do. I highly recommend it, especially if you got the time.
Mhm.
Right now, I'm writing two books simultaneously, and I just don't have the time to do a lot of their nice classes.
Okay, thank you for that, Ren. Actually, those are just the interview questions that I have, and thank you for
Hmm.
answering them all. I'm sure our viewers
No
are happy
problem.
to hear. And Ren, siguro,
Yeah.
one promotion for your book, can you tell again and encourage our viewers to get them?
Oh, okay. Yeah. This is Fate of a Distant Future, which you can see on on the screen. It's available
Right.
now on Shopee, Lazada, and also from Eight Letters, the eightletters.com. So, like, if you want to buy from there, it's also in Amazon. And Yeah, I hope you enjoy the stories. And there, every now and then, I'm thinking that next year I'm gonna host some gathering and meetups, like, just so that you can ask me questions about the books and how the sequels are going. So I'll be organizing that at there's a four-star casino hotel here, Sampaloc, and so I can meet you guys there, and let's have a chat. Let's have a drink.
Oh,
Uh,
that's great. That will be awesome. Okay, thank you,
all
everyone.
right.
Again, Ren Tranquilino.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jane. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
fun to be in your show. Thank you.
And there you go, guys. Ren Tranquilino for Philippine science fiction. And if you haven't gotten the chance to grab a copy, please get it now. And if you want more writing tips, subscribe na po dito sa channel natin. Click like and subscribe, and of course, share it with other fellow creatives. Thank you, everyone. Bye.